This podcast may contain paid advertisements, but more on that later. Welcome to the O'Connor Bootstrap Podcast, your go-to resource for unraveling the intricacies of business and leadership, honing in on the essence of bootstrapping a business from scratch. Whether you're a seasoned entrepreneur, a dedicated bootstrapper, or a leader navigating life's various challenges, this podcast is crafted just for you. I'm Isaiah O'Connor, your friendly neighborhood entrepreneur, and my mission is to guide you towards personal and professional growth. Let's embark on this journey together. Today, I'm going to follow up on my last podcast where I called Tariffs, the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Now, I was originally not planning to revisit this subject so quickly. However, things went kind of crazy in the news cycle, therefore, I think I need to address it. First of all, most of the tariffs, except for China, were paused for 90 days. This caused a rally in the stock market, and stock prices went up. Those that bought the dip were happy. I'll go into that a little bit later. And so that's kind of a nice little break. You may not have to worry about tariffs quite yet, but you do need to know that within 90 days from the day they paused it, which was a couple of days ago, we're going to be facing this again, and you'll have to be considering this again. So hopefully this podcast will help you get prepared for that eventuality. Now, what else is going on? Well, first of all, China decided to start a trade war. They raised their tariffs on U.S. goods. The U.S. raised their tariffs more on China, and now it's something like 125% on imports from the U.S. to China and 150% from China into the U.S. I don't know. It's kind of crazy. Don't know what to expect with this. We'll keep an eye on it. Now, what effect has this been having? First of all, there's not been shipping going out of China. There's goods starting to pile up on docks because no one's shipping them to the United States because of the high tariffs. And then there's worries that products like iPhones and other such products made in China will go up in price. And yes, this can affect you as well. And I'll get into that here a little bit. Also, there's a lot of manufacturers who are now looking at moving their production into Vietnam, into India, back to the United States, which hopefully that's what we want. We want the manufacturing to be made locally. That's better for the US. So hopefully that's what happens. Okay, we'll just see what happens. Now let's go into a little bit more details about the stock market and kind of what the point of this podcast is, which is not to panic. Okay? Remember when I said the general advice is to buy the dip? Well, it turned out that was correct. People who bought the dip did make a lot of money this time around. And this is not just my advice. Matter of fact, I don't have anything invested in the stock market right now. That's because I haven't had the extra cash to do so. I wish I did. I would have bought a few days ago, but hey, it is what it is. But for example, Dave Ramsey has said since 2006 or longer, when I first got introduced to him, he said that when the people are panicking, the people on the news are screaming, the sky is falling, don't panic. That's the time to buy because the stock market is on sale. And he says it, when eggs are on sale, that's when you buy eggs. So when the market's down, it's on sale. And I know people that bought in 2008 and bought every time the market dipped, and they're doing really, really well for themselves because they're long-term investors. They buy when things are on sale, and they make money in the long term. What you don't want to do is panic. Like one friend of mine, he panicked and he sold off a bunch of his stocks that were in his retirement fund when they were at the lowest in 2008, and he lost most of his money. He was in real big trouble. If he hadn't panicked and just held on to his money and maybe bought more, he would have been absolutely fine. That's what happens with the stock market. You can go look at the history of the stock market. It goes down, it comes up, it goes down, it comes up, it goes down, it comes up. But in general, it usually winds up higher than it was from before. So that's just a basic strategy. This is basic stock investment advice that you can get from just about anyone online. It's pretty basic. Now, with that in mind, I just have to say, I am not, again, a financial advisor. I'm just a guy on a podcast that has no money in the market at the moment. So you can take my advice with a grain of salt. I'm just saying what I've seen and what I've read, and from what actual people that know what they're talking about have said. I'm just telling you what they've taught me. So I'm sharing that with you. Now, it's not just tariffs that can knock you off balance. Things like wage mandates, minimum wage can raise up things, supply disruption can hit you. Just different things can knock you off balance. And how do you deal with these things? The trick is to plan ahead. Or, as the title of this podcast is, you plan now and you panic never. Okay? So, I'm going to go into some actionable steps on how to plan now so you don't have to panic later, right after the mid-podcast break now. Welcome to the mid-episode break. Today we don't have any new Apple iTunes comments, 5-star reviews, or any new Patreons to shout out. But just remember, if you do leave a 5-star review, or if you do join Patreon, you will be shouted out on the very next episode I record. And with that in mind, I do want to thank you all for listening and for supporting me as I start to rebuild this business. And remember, if you have ideas, if questions about this, want to talk about it, you want to talk about the tariffs, if you want to talk about business, plans, all this good stuff, I really do encourage you to come and join us on Discord. We also have a Facebook page, Facebook group. Reach out. We'll talk, and I really want to build a community. Anyway, let's get back to the episode. Okay, welcome back to the second half. Now let's look into some actionable things you can do to plan ahead so you can panic never. Okay? No panic. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Great advice. Okay, so first of all, you need to read the future. Now, I don't mean getting a crystal ball and hiding a medium or anything weird like that. Of course, that's not what I'm saying. But you do need to take Rabbi Daniel Lapin's advice from his book, Thou Shalt Prosper, which is looking ahead by looking at the past trends, looking at current trends, and paying attention to what's going on in business, in your industry, just in general. So that way you're not taken off guard, because you'll have an idea of what's coming down the pipeline as you go. Like I'd mentioned before, if a minimum wage increase is on its way, well, you'll do better if you know it's coming than if you just get a report, oh yeah, you now have to raise your minimum wage now. Crap. What do I do now if that happens? Well, if you're paying attention, you'll know it's coming. You won't have to stress about it. Same thing with the tariffs. Same thing with the different shifts in the market. You can kind of get an idea. Now, granted, you can't plan for everything, but you can get a pretty good idea of the basics of what's coming on. And then, secondly, you can get out of debt. Now, not every business guy is going to say this, because some businesses really love debt because there's some tax breaks and there's trying to factor in the future value of a dollar versus the current value of a dollar, etc. It's really complex business math. And to be honest, my eyes kind of glazed over every time I listened to that part on the business lesson I was listening to. However, one thing they don't do on these huge debt calculations and how to get tax write-offs on these things is they don't account for risk. And I'm really risk adverse. Therefore, I don't want to add debt. What kept my business alive during COVID was no debt. Low overhead, no debt, and I was able to keep my business alive. Now, I do have a whole episode on just debt, but this is one thing that can help brace you for uncertainties in the market. A third thing you can do is build what's called a contingency fund. It's like a private emergency fund of sorts, but with a private emergency fund, you try to save that only for emergencies. Your car gets in an accident, or your dryer suddenly breaks, or whatever it is, that's an emergency. In business, a contingency fund is for emergencies, it's for slow times, and it's for opportunity. For example, say you have $10,000 in your business contingency fund. Now, with these contingency funds, by the way, you need to keep it liquid, easily accessible. Standard bank account, money market account, something liquid so you can get to it quickly. It's not going to be a big earner. You're not going to be investing this. It's not a big interest earner or anything like that. It's just something that's liquid that you have on hand. Now, say you run say you're a mechanic, you run a mechanic shop, and you've been looking for a new piece of equipment. Say you need a forklift for some reason in your shop, and you've been planning on buying a forklift, and all of a sudden the forklift you want goes on sale, 50% off, new models replacing it. Now you have the money, $10,000. The new prices say $10,000 from $20,000. You can immediately go and purchase that item that you need because you have the cash to buy it on hand. And that way you avoid going into debt. That's just an example. I know that might be a weird sounding one, but just thinking of off the top of my head, that's one thing you do. Also, say your business actually has investments as part of your business. There's a lot of businesses that will actually invest some of their profits into the market, into funds, to help with cash flow. And in a market dip, perhaps you want to take some money from your contingency fund in your business to go buy some more stocks, bonds, funds, whatever you do, so that you have some money readily available for such an opportunity. Or again, you have it there. Say you're like I was in the balloon industry. One guy I know, he had money saved aside, he had insurance, and somebody dropped a helium tank and it destroyed a really expensive marble walkway of their client. The client got the job for free, and he had the money set aside, and he was immediately able to pull out and pay for the replacing that really nice expensive piece of marble and get it fixed immediately. So again, contingency funds are a great way to brace yourself against the unknown. Great idea to set aside a contingent percentage of your money towards a contingency fund. Another thing you can set up is a sinking fund for things that you know you need. For example, like I said, say you're running some sort of warehouse, is probably better than a garage, and you need to buy a new forklift. So instead of putting it on credit, what you do is you say open up a fund, bank account, money market account, and you start adding money to that out of your budget month after month. until it hits the amount of money you need to buy the item. So if you plan ahead and you put money aside for things you know you're going to need, that's called a sinking fund. And a sinking fund can help you keep from going to debt and plan for the unexpected because, again, you're already planning for things that you know are coming. One place I worked, they knew they would have to do repairs every 10 years on their buildings. And so they had a fund set that every 10 years they had the money to pay for the replacement of that building facade or whatever it was every 10 years. And they had it rolling, so they had one for each building. And so they staggered it. So every single year, they're always repairing things that need to be repaired, but they're never going into debt for it because they plan ahead. As far as wage hikes, well, if you pay employees well to begin with, a sudden wage hike is not going to knock you off balance because you will already have been paying your employees above minimum wage because, again, I don't agree with government mandates. However, I agree with paying your employees very, very well. And if you pay them very well and a wage hike pops up, great. You're prepared because then you can gradually increase your employees' pay back so they can feel cared about and valued, but you don't have to do it overnight. Sudden wage hikes can really ruin you. This happened to Pizza Hut. Pizza Hut had to fire all the delivery drivers in California because of the sudden minimum wage hike. They couldn't eat that, so they switched and they just relied on Uber Eats, for example. So if you're well ahead of the curve paying good wages, then sudden wage hikes is not going to mess with you. And then you have supply chains. You need to try to bring your supply chains local, if possible. The more you can control your supply chain, the better it is. The more different places you can buy things, the broader your supply chain for individual product, the better. I have a whole podcast on supply chains as well. But if you can bring your supply chain in local, that's even better because you can keep an eye on it, you can control it better, it can work for you. Matter of fact, I heard of a company called Boonies HQ. It's a skateboarding company, and they decided to do all their manufacturing, keep it local, and do not take the discount from China, because China could have made it $5 less per board, but they decided not to because they want to support the local economy, and that paid off really big for them because now, with all the chaos with China right now, they're not being hit at all. It does not affect them at all. So local supply chains is great. And if you're offshore supply chains, try to reshore them. A couple of years ago, I actually did a whole podcast on this as well about the advantages of producing locally and how that can actually save you money in the long run, stress, etc. And again, with that, keep multiple suppliers. Like I said, with balloons, I had 3 or 4 different balloon suppliers I could go to in a pinch. And when other people struggled to get supplies, I had no problem because I had multiple resources. And another thing you can do is price correctly. Make sure you're pricing so you have a strong margin. The term is price as much as the market will bear. This is true, but it's not just about greed. It's also about protecting your company from future hits. So, for example, like I said with last time, Coffee Brand Coffee, they're eating the cost of the tariffs when they come down the line. Fortunately for them, they don't have to worry about it right yet, but that could be a possibility. So if you keep your margins big and enough room, you can take a hit in a sudden rise in cost to get you through. And hopefully things will calm down. Like I talked about last time, tariffs can cause cost to spike initially, but if we look at steel, the prices could drop back down and you might be okay. But it'll be rough at first. So keep your margins big, have emergency money, be debt-free, all this stuff. It starts leading into each other, and you'll be better prepared. And something you can do even now is try to lower your overhead cost as much as possible. Look around. Make sure you're not using a lot of water. Make sure maybe you're having a really expensive internet plan and you don't need that high of a plan. Maybe you have a huge phone bill on your company phones. Maybe you can adjust that. There's little things you can start cutting down on to streamline your process so that you have lower overhead, higher margins. That will help you take care of things. And then there's this little thing that most people don't like to do, which is called budgeting. Again, I don't know if I've done a lesson on this or a podcast on a lesson, but a budget in your business and a budget in your house is a lifesaver. Remember, all a budget is you telling your money where to go instead of wondering where it went. That's a direct quote from Dave Ramsey. So, budget ahead, plan ahead as best you can where you're going to put your money. You can budget money for an emergency contingency fund. You can budget money for a sinking fund. You can budget money for your employees' wages. All this stuff, you budget it, you have control. If you have control, you don't have to panic. And lastly, don't panic. If you see a downturn in the market, a downturn in the economy, don't freak out. Don't panic. If you have everything else prepped, if you've got your budget prepped, if you got all these things in place, you really don't have to panic. Now, of course, you can't plan for everything. Some things just hit you out of left field. You can't plan for it, and the ramifications to this are too strong. The impact is too long, and you can't recover from it. My balloon business never fully recovered from COVID. The long-term effects were just too much for my balloon business to handle, and I eventually had to close it down. Now, I was still getting clients. I was still making profit. So I was still doing okay. But the problem was I could no longer keep it because I could no longer supply enough money for my family to live off of. So I had to end it, amongst some other issues such as health and other plans going on in our life right now. But I had no debt. I had very, very low overhead. So even though I wasn't making much money, I still made money in my business. It just wasn't enough to live off of. So I had to close it down. But when I closed it down, it wasn't a bankruptcy thing. I still had money. I didn't have to go to court. Nothing like that. So again, following these ideas, following these plans, even if you get hit by an unexpected downturn that you cannot overcome, you'll still be okay. I'm okay. I just had to shift my focus back into podcasting. I'm going to hit this really hard instead. That's it. No problem. As I recover with some health issues, I can still do something. So I'm not panicked, just hitting it on. Now, to sum up, tariffs, market swings, supply chain disruptions can hit your business hard. But if you plan now, and it can keep you ahead, and if you're tracking trends, staying debt-free, building up funds, setting money aside, all these things will build resilience into your company. Be it a small mom and pop shop, be it some sort of service, be it you're making balloons, maybe you're doing wedding decorations, whatever. If you get things in line now, planned, you don't have to panic. Now, if you want some help with this, if you have ideas about this, if you want to dig deeper into any of this, go ahead, reach out to me. I'm on Discord, links in the description. Email, Discord, you can reach me. Anyway, I've been your friendly neighborhood entrepreneur. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye. If today's episode added value to your day, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment and consider giving us a stellar 5-star rating on your favorite podcast platform. Whether it's Apple Podcast, Spotify, Google Podcast, or more. And remember, if you leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcast, I will personally read it out in the next episode. To support the show, you can make a one-time gift by buying us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/bootstrap, donate through PayPal at paypal.me/IOCPOD, or make a contribution on our Patreon page at patreon.com/IOCPOD. Your support keeps the episodes coming. For even more content and exclusive perks, join our Patreon community at patreon.com/IOCPod. Patrons enjoy ad-free episodes, access to our private Discord server, early content previews, and a lot more. And here's an exciting offer. Get your free trial of our $5 a month Bootstrapper Community Explorer tier. This exclusive tier grants you ad-free content, Discord server access, and early content previews. Join us and be part of the inner circle. If you're feeling more generous, those who join tiers $25 a month and up will have a chance to be a featured guest on this podcast. A massive thank you to Wintergotten for generously providing the incredible intro and outro music at no cost. We appreciate their support. Be sure to check out Wintergotten's amazing work on YouTube at youtube.com/@Wintergotten. Until next time, I'm your friendly neighborhood entrepreneur, Isaiah O'Connor, signing off. This is the O'Connor Bootstrap Podcast, brought to you by Athos Business Solutions. For our companion podcast, the Athos Business Podcast, hosted by Jason St. Clair, along with past episodes and related blogs, visit our website at athos.com. That's ATHEOZ.com or theoz.com. Goodbye for now.